Hello everyone, this is CJNovo992 and today we're back for another brand new video, and it's been a wee while since me and the goat to speak about some football things, as I promised to give you a wee bit of time off, because I'm pretty sure if we reflect on August you probably saw me more times than you saw your own reflection, so we needed a wee bit of a breather and probably to recharge after just whatever the hell this football club is putting us through. However, as we edge closer and closer to that Hearts game and closer and closer to that preview, we've got this wee cheeky wee appetizer in terms of an international recap to dive into and discuss, which on paper might just sound like it's just a wee taster, but it's just no too much to actually break down. Well, believe it or not, there's a hell of a lot more meat to these bones, and if you give me the next 15, 17, possibly 27, either way we're here to talk about players that struggled all season long, having left their football club, having left the restraints, having left the system, if you want, and performed at a very, very different level. So let's just dive right into one of the most meaningful international recaps for a very, very long time regarding this channel. But starting off as always with closer to home and then working our way out. It means we have to start off with the old Scotland himself, as we had two players called up for the main squad, one of them being Liam Kelly and the other being Big John Soapy Soutar. Now, as you can imagine, Liam Kelly didn't play any minutes, so there's nothing to break down, but there is things to break down when it comes to Big Soapy Soutar, as Soapy, as he often does for Scotland, goes on there, pulls on the boots and plays absolutely brilliantly, as I think the more defensive approach, the more restricted approach certainly suits Big Soapy, as he was brilliant in two games, keeping two clean sheets, especially in the first game where he played against Denmark, having to go away. His partner on that day was Grant Hanley. They dug in, they headed everything in sight. Even, to be fair, Big Grant as well was chucking his head at everything, clearing everything, and it was a much, much stronger performance over the two legs, in my personal opinion. But again, they never got anything on the other end of that day, so it did end in a draw. But during the World Cup qualifier, they went ahead and got a 2-0 win versus Belarus, where again Big Soapy was in the back line and kept another clean sheet. And Soapy was the only centre back, you know what I mean? Grant Hanley, Scott McKenna, all that stuff. Big Soapy was the only centre back to start both games. That probably shows and underlines his importance to his country, and also maybe actually gives you a wee glimpse and maybe gives you a wee sign that John Soapy Soutar, in the right environment, a more pragmatic approach, dare I say, a more defensive minded side, what this guy can actually be. And when a system is tailored to suit his defensive strengths and avoiding his defensive weaknesses, he can stand out, and that's the player we thought we were getting for Hearts. We were hoping he was able to kick on, and maybe we're just asking him today stuff that he's not comfortable with, ladies and gentlemen. And I've said this many times on the channel, but the further he is away from the halfway line and the closer he is to his box regarding his defensive line, the better he is as a defender. It's just real unfortunate at Rangers Football Club. You need that attacking mindset. You need to be further up. Because again, there's nothing wrong with Soapy as an out-and-out defender. It's just everything else we require for him that he's not suited to. But again, for Scotland, he was absolutely brilliant over both games. And again, just an underrated player, in my personal opinion, in the Scotland setup. And with time ticking down in terms of his contract and how long he's got left at this football club, I imagine there's a couple of clubs glancing over and paying more attention to his international form rather than his Rangers form, and saying, aye, he could do a job for us, parking that at the old books. But we'll speak about that in another day. He was very, very impressive. My only real disappointment regarding the Scotland setup and everything like that is there was no place in the first team or in the setup for Mr. Finlay Curtis, as I think it could have been good for his development and just for him as well to be in and amongst it. But we know Stevie Clark sort of drip feeds the younger players the opportunities to get amongst the group and gel and kick on as football players, as he was called up to play for the under-21s. But again, as I sort of let it know, even when I did the player profiles and that, I didn't dive too much into that, as the levels and the player development and player progression on an individual basis varies very, very drastically. So we'll not really dive into Finlay Curtis's under-21s, and we'll sort of skip by young Jadon's playing for England's under-20s as well, because there's not much there we can really dive into. Something we can get into, however, is doing a reverse Viking and sailing over to Norway and pitching up and talking about Mr. Thelo Aasgaard for is obviously Norwegian games. Now, I imagine you've probably seen, heard or read about this one, as the news has been sort of all over this one because of his substitute impact and the amount of goals that he went ahead and scored. But again, just like John, he played in 2 of his teams, or countries' games, I should say. But unlike John, however, he started neither game. You know what I mean? He didn't start in the friendly game versus Finland, which again saw a certain Glenn Kamara play saucily in the middle of the park. But Norway was able to come away with a 1-0 win thanks to a penalty goal scored by Mr. Haaland, as Thelo Aasgaard came off the bench on that day as well and was directly involved in several attacks, pinging some passes about and creating some clear sights on goal that wasn't happening prior to his introduction, right? So again, that's positive and that's something to get behind. Aye, his next substitute appearance in a World Cup qualifier has certainly made the news, as he came on and played 26 minutes, and during those 26 minutes he scored 4 frickin' goals. Aye, that's right, I said 4 goals in 26 minutes. The guy's had more goals in 26 minutes for his country than shots that he's had in his entire Rangers career, as he's been sort of strangled of that freedom that he plays, that attacking motif that he has. Now again, there will be people that instantly jump and say, oh, don't the news, it was against Moldova. You know what I mean? Me, you and a couple guys for the pub could probably give them a game, and I understand if you want to go down that route, but at the exact same time, did Hearts not get beat off a team in European football that was from Moldova, and did we not also watch us barely struggle to beat the likes of Alawa? Did we not see just last season us get beat off Queen's Park? You know what I mean? It doesn't matter the level of the team that you play against. It's all about how you approach the game, both physically and mentally. And if you're all in with a killer instinct and come into a game of football with 26 minutes, putting the foot down and scoring 4 frickin' goals, is something can get behind, as it shows a ruthless streak. It's no, let's just pass this ball about here, this game's over, you know what I mean? He scored 4 goals that day. Do you know how many goals that big freaky cyborg went ahead and scored called Haaland? He scored 5, ladies and gentlemen, right? So the game was done and dusted. They could have just set up shop and passed it, but he came on and said, nah, I want something here. I want to show my quality. And it was absolutely sensational, as was Norway, who should be beating teams like that. But if we beat the teams we're supposed to beat on a weekly basis, I'd have a lot less grey hairs and we'd all be much happier. So you can only ever beat what's in front of you, and Norway put the foot down, and Thelo Aasgaard was outstanding. And even as Moldova tried to park the bus and pile people at the back and hang on for dear life so they didn't get embarrassed even further than they ended up doing, they were still able to play attacking football and quick football and still be able to get in the gaps, and Thelo Aasgaard was able to get on the football and make things happen. So there's no excuse, none, for him to be side by side or passing it sideways or watching a centre back pass it to another centre back for 40 frickin' minutes. Give it to the creative attacking players, because you just saw a small glimpse what he's capable of. Anyway, moving on for Thelo Aasgaard, who was simply sensational, may bring that confidence and belief to a Rangers shirt now and not get slapped down by the system, style and approach and belief or energy, whatever we try today. Moving away for Norway, I think we'll pick up where we sort of mentioned about a minute or 2 ago, and that is Finland then, shall we? Because again, Norway played Finland in the first friendly of their international break, and unfortunately, where Thelo Aasgaard was able to get off the bench and played pretty well in that game, Oliver Antman wasn't selected from the bench or from a starting position. He had to wait for the second game, which again, to be fair, was a World Cup qualifier, as he went ahead and played Poland, and he was started. But again, if I'm being brutally honest, where most people we've talked about so far has been good, and then great in terms of Thelo Aasgaard, Oliver Antman was probably the poorest of the lot. Spoiler alert for the rest of the video. But you know what's very, very ironic, because he was substituted around about the 65th minute of the game of football. Do you know where he was playing in that game? On the left hand side. So our worst performing player on the international scene during the international break was a player being played out of position. Irony, innit? It's almost like playing a player out of position is never going to bring the best to him. You know what I mean? It's crazy. But I will move on. 65 minutes. Didn't play great as Poland went ahead and won the game as they were expected to, if I'm honest, with 3-1. And there was no Ant-Man heroics like the last time they played Poland where he grabbed the winning assist in the game. None of that today because he was played out of position. But moving on from there, and I'll be honest with you, during my recent rant / celebrations of the likes of thelo aasgaard, I have lost geographically where I am right now, so I'm just going to go ahead and gallop down to North Macedonia and catch up with the big man, Mr. Bojan Miovski. And it's maybe ironic that we talk about Bojan because, like Oliver Antman, he was an unused substitute in the friendly before the World Cup qualifier, as North Macedonia went ahead and lost versus Saudi Arabia 2-1. In the friendly, Bojan didn't play, but then he was given the opportunity to lead the line in the World Cup qualifier, in which North Macedonia, absolutely spat on Liechtenstein 5 frickin' nothing. Yeah, it was game, it was set, it was match, as they roasted them rotten all frickin' game, and the goals were coming from everywhere, unfortunately, besides the fit or the heat or the shoulder of Bojan Miovski, as he went close a couple times. He did link up the play, he did bring the ball up, he did win a couple set pieces, and he did win a set piece that did create a goal, so he was involved in things. No goals, no fouls, no spills, but a solid day at the office for Mr. Bojan Miovski. And solid day at the office gives us the perfect transition over to Albania to get a wee catch up with Mr. Bajrami, who again had a lot of interest and offers for him before the transfer window went ahead and slammed shut, but Rangers decided to hold off on it because they're still waiting for that player that's clearly in there for Bajrami, to be unlocked and become a very important player for his football team and again for his country. It was another solid out, and he did play in the first game, which was a labouring game of football versus Gibraltar, by the way, as Albania only won 1-0, but again the big man was substituted early and a lot of rotations were made, keeping the best players and most important Albanian players to be fit, to be ready for the World Cup qualifier, in which Bajrami did go ahead and start in that game of football and go ahead and play pretty damn well and get his best right up for a wee while, especially on the international setup as they went ahead and won that game. Also won frickin' nothing. And again, we've made a couple references to irony and being ironic and everything like that, and it is funny to see it go kinda, oh yeah, it was alright versus Gibraltar, right, but then the game where we really need him, the biggest game of the two games that he could possibly play, it gets a good write-up. And that's the most Bajrami thing of all time, because Bajrami's only really turned up in the big games for us. All his best games have either been against Celtic or where he's played well in Europe, and it seems to be that way for the country as well. Friendly, sort of sleepwalking, but again the World Cup qualifier, it kicked it into gear and played really well. But again, you balance that over, and I would say it was a solid day at the office. Now, however, it's time to talk about another centre-half, and another centre-half that's kept a couple clean sheets, by the way, and played very, very well. And it's mad that, you think about how bad we are defensively, but Big Soapy, brilliant for Scotland, couple clean sheets. And now we go out to Canada, where yeah, we might need to bring our jackets occasionally. Somebody should have told Cifuentes, but again, we're here to talk about our newest signing, Mr. Derek Cornelius, before we go ahead and get to what clearly we need to speak about. He was outstanding in the first game as well, as Canada won that game. Now, Derek picked up a yellow card. I've looked into it, it was worth a yellow card, but again, I'm not afraid of that, and I like that in my back line as Canada went ahead and won the first game, and then in their second game versus Wales, Derek Cornelius from 28 yards out stepped up with a free kick and buried it in to the bread basket. Honestly, it's a screamer. Now, he'll probably never be allowed to take one, but if you're seeing a centre-half standing up for there and putting it into the bread basket, maybe, just maybe, you go ahead and let him take one now that he's feeling that confidence, feeling that belief. I watched his interview after it and he said he'd been practising his free kicks a lot. Oh, I hope you're practising your headering, big man. I really, really hope you are. But the centre-back's been practising his free kicks, and then he steps up when his country needs him the most. And for the first time in Canadian football history, they went ahead and won back-to-back games, keeping clean sheets. And there's your centre-half being a vocal point, and not just being a bit part player or being a solid player or being a part of it. He's one of the main reasons he's went ahead and happened. So I'm not wanting to hear anything from Brussels Martin, ladies and gentlemen, about, oh, he needs time, he's no full of it. That guy's fully fit. He's just been absolutely standing, and he's even dropped one in the breadbasket versus Hearts. There's your left centre half, and that doesn't change unless something bad happens to him during the actual season, or if there's a suspension or there's a rotation that needs to happen. There's your centre half there playing at a ridiculous level. Let's no overthink things and just play the good players. And last but not least, it means we need to go over to Belgium, as Giga was an unused substitute in both his games, so there's nothing to really break down there. Instead, let's go ahead and break down the barrier that is this Belgian war and figure out what the hell is going on, because a guy that's been on every Rangers fan's lips, every Rangers fan's mind, and every Rangers fan's social media for weeks, if not months, has been the wee man who is apparently good enough to be selected to play in a Belgian midfield that's not only got the likes of Kevin De Bruyne and Yuri Telemans and all that stuff, but they've also got Van Hekken, who absolutely ran us rampant and ripped their soul out when he was running the midfield for Club Brugge versus Rangers a couple of weeks ago. But Raskin's able to slot in there and play with them and stand out versus them, but he can't make it in our Rangers midfield. It needs to sit in the house for our biggest domestic game of the season because Brussels Martin's no wanting anything to do with him. It's weird, ladies and gentlemen. So there was a lot of eyes on Mr. Raskin, who didn't actually play in the first game, which maybe played into one side in the narrative, but in the second game for Belgium, again, the qualifier, again, the opportunity to stand out. He started in the middle of the park with some of the greatest midfielders this game has seen in a very, very long time. And if you search on social media, on Twitter or X, whatever it's called, and you hit translate on the Belgian lads' tweets about him, what you will find is unanimous praise and love for his work rate, his appetite, and his never say die attitude. And the fact that he offers legs that's maybe no their way, KDB and Telemans and all that. They're no got the legs of previous years, but he's able to go in there and snap there and win the ball back and get this team kicking and be a heartbeat to the Belgian midfield. And it's funny when you click through and you translate and you read what other people think about him. It's the exact same stuff we as a Rangers fans scream and sing and praise him for. And honestly, see, when you step back and you look at everyone, right, people that didn't watch Rangers every week, the ones that are the Belgian fans of that, and then Rangers fans, you chuck all that together and you look at it all when it's said and done. The only person that doesn't rate this laddie is the head coach of your team, and that's terrifying. But again, in terms of his individual performance, he was brilliant on the day. Really, really was. For every minute he was on the park, he got an incredible write-up, and even scored in the game of football, which is probably the easiest tap-in he will ever make. But please go back and look at this goal. Do you know what Belgium has, troops? Midfielders bombing into the box, players and attack-minded players doing an overload inside the penalty area so no defender can sort of just clear easy balls. And that's what Raskin done. He ran into the middle, as did 3 or 4 other Belgian players, and he was able to tap in a header across the box at the back post because they had players attacking the 6-yard box. It's no overcomplicated, it's no complete magic, troops. It's just putting players in the penalty box and attacking the space. And Raskin got his goal. His overall performance certainly deserved, as Belgium, yes, absolutely spanked Kazakhstan. And again, people say, oh, here we go, now we're talking about Moldova, now we're talking about Kazakhstan, what's going on here? CJ, well, do I need to remind each and every single person that yes, it was Kazakhstan, but a team in this country that beats us to trophies every single year, over 180 minutes, couldn't beat a team from Kazakhstan, ladies and gentlemen. Again, you can only ever beat what's in front of you. And what I'm taking for this international recap is we've got talented players, we've got good players in and around the dressing room, we've signed good players. That's not the problem. It's not a rotten core with a rotten group and a rotten frickin' signings. There is talent in there. Our problem is harnessing that talent and putting a system and a style of play that's going to actually make that flourish, and it suits them. You know what I mean? We've got a manager or a head coach that's got it in his mind of what he wants today, but a manager's job's to get the best out of these players and make players better. It's not to force players to suit his style of play and his wee vision of what he wants football to be. You know what I mean? Pep ball is finished. Like, I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is it any one of these managers that fantasise and idolise this style of play, paying attention to what's actually winning trophies right now in football? Football's evolved. Football has moved on. Pep doesn't even get the results anymore, and it's his style of play. He's needing to tweak it. He's needing to change it. And he's still trying to find his freaking way. So it's weird to me that we've got a manager completely lost in the motif of that style. Well, it's not even bringing success anymore. Can somebody shake him and wake him? There's potential players in there that he could get a real opportunity and get some real results out of, but he's got to start playing to their strengths rather in his head what his is. You know what I mean? It's crazy, but I'll leave it right there, ladies and gentlemen. That's my thoughts and opinions, and it's why it's one of the most meaningful international recaps we've had right here on the channel, because there's a lot of question marks regarding these players. There's a lot of question marks about players sitting in the house during Old Firms, yet every single time they're able to go away from what we asked them to do, they excel and they show that if you play to their strengths, they can take you in a certain direction, and that direction needs to be better than whatever the hell we've had this season, which is the worst domestic start to a campaign we've ever had. So Russell Martin's got to have some food to fault when he sits and looks at these players playing like that and see what they can do in certain styles. So aye, it's about figuring that out, and that's his job, ladies and gentlemen, you know what I mean? And that's how he'll be judged, and that, in my opinion, will determine how long he's in that position. If he can start getting the best of what is a decent bunch in there with a couple good players and a couple good pieces that could win you a couple damn good games, that starts to kick on the old journey. There's no more distractions, the window's shut, all this stuff is there. Everyone that's in the building wants to be here now. There's no more excuses, Russell. Go ahead and figure this stuff out, and I hope that starts on Saturday. But that's my opinion, ladies and gentlemen. Let me know your thoughts and opinions down there in the old comments section below. If you are still watching today's video, who stood out the most to you? What's your thoughts and opinions on the Raskin situation? Do you think Derek Cornelius should be dropped right in to the starting 11? Who partners him? Is it Soapy on the right hand side? It was brilliant for Scotland. Is it Giga to try and play that more style that maybe suits the Russell Martin style of football? Very interested to know your thoughts and opinions down there in the old comment section below. And until then, I've been Siege over 92. I'll see you for the preview. All the best, and bye-bye.